I'm Mia Foster, and up until last night, life was a cozy little routine. At 43, with 2 amazing kids, I thought I had a charmed existence, complete with a loyal husband and a best friend I could lean on. But there are times when your perfectly polished world can shatter. Like when you wake up at 2 a.m. and sneak a peek at your husband's phone only to discover a message that unleashes your worst nightmares. Picture this: I'm groggy, half awake, and just trying to get a sip of water when my husband Ethan's phone lights up like it's auditioning for a role in a horror film. Me, Silky, Tia, you were incredible. Suddenly, I'm no longer a sleepy mom making pot roast. I'm a woman gasping at revelations that leave my heart in shambles. Instead of spells and fairy tales, I'm faced with the stark reality that he's not where he claimed to be. He's in Houston, or at least that's what I thought. In that moment, it felt like the universe hit the pause button. I stumbled to the bathroom, splashed my face, expecting to wake from a nightmare. But there I was staring back, unrecognizable, with a swirling mix of anger and emptiness. It wasn't an explosion, just a quiet crack inside that shifted everything. Life went on, though. The sun poured in brightly as if mocking my turmoil. Ethan, blissfully unaware, moved about the house like it was just another day at the office. When he kissed me goodbye, it felt different, like a phantom touch only I could sense. Inside, I was simmering, but outwardly, I cleaned up the breakfast mess like a robot on autopilot. I'd read that women are good at maintaining appearances, but let me tell you, it's exhausting. Instead of throwing dishes or staging a dramatic confrontation, I prepped for normalcy in my stormy mind. Desperate for a lifeline, I turned to my best friend, Gillian, someone I knew could help me hold it together. She had been there through thick and thin, my confidante since college. I dialed her number, not revealing my angst, just asking to meet for coffee. A code language, really, as if sipping lattes could somehow cleanse my shattered world. When I arrived, her picture-perfect facade was almost disarming. "Hey, you look awful," she cracked, half joking. Yet, behind her smile, I caught the shift, an all-too-brief flicker of fear as I slid my phone across the table. The words from Ethan's message lit up again. Despite her efforts to remain composed, Gillian's eyes betrayed her. Was it shock? Guilt? I wasn't sure, but the change in her demeanor narrowed my vision and heightened my suspicion. "What makes you think is cheating?" she asked, pitching her voice to sound casual, though I could feel the tension in the air. I didn't need a lawyer on retainer or a PhD in psychology to know there was more beneath the surface of our friendship. It was all there, the train was already off the tracks, and oddly enough, I needed her to either reassure me or brace me for what was to come. And here we were, sharing a cup of coffee in a cafe that suddenly felt like a courtroom, with my heart on the line. Her voice didn't just sound tight, it was practically strangled. "Too tight," she said. I tried to read her, but she refused to meet my eyes. I bit my lip, feeling bitter. The weight of my thought had me grumbling that Ethan was nothing more than someone's tire now. I had foolishly believed in our invincible bond, but Gillian seemed too distracted. A silence blanketed us, and I started to wonder if I should worry about more than just Ethan. The shifting unease was all-consuming, gnawing away at me. Surely, Gillian was just in shock. Yet, her restless fingers drumming on her coffee cup and darting gaze suggested otherwise. Something wasn't adding up. I tried to shrug off my suspicions, but the itch behind my mind persisted. All I could think about was how her body language spoke volumes, and the little clues I kept overlooking began to itch away at my reason until it all seemed harder to dismiss than I wanted it to be. When I sat in my car outside the school later that night, waiting for Maya's rehearsal to end, my mind played the coffee shop scene on repeat. I dissected every second of Gillian's reaction like a forensic expert hunting for clues. My thoughts floated to that company holiday party Ethan attended alone 3 months back. Gillian brushed off my inquiry about whether she got invited with an offhand excuse. Now, these breadcrumbs of doubt were starting to connect, leading me straight to a place I'd rather not be. A campaign of red flags unfurled before me, Gillian's tone when Ethan's name was mentioned, her lame excuses to avoid meeting up, and the weird defensiveness. I must have been blinded by trust, but, hung up on that nagging message in my mind, I couldn't ignore it any longer. The next morning, I casually dropped to Ethan that I was taking the girls to my parents for the weekend. He didn't even question it, just relievedly said okay. That small nod was a jarring confirmation of my fears. I needed to hear Gillian's soothing voice before I left town, just one last chance to get her to tell me a lie I could hold on to. "Hey, you all right?" she chirped, but I had to get to the point. I mentioned Blue Ridge. Her surprise was palpable. I caught myself freezing when she asked if I was overreacting. That word felt loaded, echoing betrayal. As the conversation twisted, my patience thinned. "Whose side are you on?" came out sharper than intended. Her error now unmistakable, and I felt done. "It's just too fast." Her flustered response only fueled my anger. I shot back, raising my voice. "Stop trying to talk me out of trusting my instinct." We hung in a heavy silence. "You sure you're okay?" she asked, and for once, I gave her the truth. I was not okay, but getting there felt like a mountain ahead of me and no one around to lend a hand. I ended the call, refusing her comfort, realizing I clung to a fragile web woven by deceit. Returning home felt wrong. The house appeared unchanged but felt different somehow. The neat lawn had turned into a trap, and those wind chimes jingled a mocking tune. I shook as I parked. I swore I wouldn't be back, but Maya's reading packet awaited me in the front closet. Silent conflict wrestled inside me, but I pushed through. I'd grab the books quickly and slip out before any inkling of Ethan's presence could disrupt my resolve. Yet, the second I crossed the threshold into that house, every fiber of me knew something was off. The air felt stale and foreign, rattling my senses. I hurriedly found the closet, grabbed the books stacked beside those outdated rain boots, and pivoted to leave when suddenly, I heard it, the irrefutable sound that sent every rational thought tumbling into chaos. The first crack had formed, and I wondered what lay ahead. The key turned in the front door, and my heart felt like it hit my stomach. I froze, gripping Maya's backpack as if it was a medieval shield. Then came the whispers, light-hearted and conspiratorial. Ethan, with his smooth voice, was busy downplaying the situation. But Gillian's soft tones pierced through, laced with nervousness. It hit me like a ton of bricks. My husband and my best friend were up to something shifty, and I was obviously the last one to know. With my world unraveling, I followed their laughter hesitantly up the stairs, each step feeling like I was stepping into a bonfire. My knees trembled, and I clutched the banister, searching for balance on the creaky staircase that once sang of family joy. Now, every creak sounded like a gut punch, echoing my heart's distress. As I reached our bedroom door, slightly ajar, I heard more laughter and low chatter that silenced my thoughts and quickened my heartbeat. I swung the door open to the harsh light of reality. There was Ethan, his shirt half undone, hair tousled like he just woke up from a sleepover, and Gillian looked pale as a ghost, her blouse wrinkled in all the wrong places. Their faces morphed into expressions of shock, and Ethan stammered some nonsense about it not being what it looked like. I tilted my head, a calmness enveloping me that was unsettling. How could I be so even-keeled in such chaos? "Really?" I asked, my voice steady against the whirlwind crashing around us. "Because it looks a hell of a lot like my best friend and my husband about to hop into bed together." Gillian's mouth opened, then shut like a fish flopping for air, estrogen in panic mode. When Ethan attempted to move closer, I held up my hand like a stop sign. "Don't you dare come near me." The look on his face was priceless, almost painful to behold. I couldn't help but wave my hands dramatically. You both had a galaxy of options out there. Any bed in the city, but no, here you are making it symbolic. The silence that followed could have been sliced with a knife. I turned to Gillian, the words spilling out like acid. "Don't say my name. You lost that right the moment you crossed my threshold with him." A flicker of regret crossed her face, but I was done with trust. I'd trusted her with everything. Ethan made his last desperate attempt. "Mia, please." But I cut through the air with finality. "I have your texts, all of them. This is poetic, Ethan. I'm outta here." It was a quick exit to pack my life, my kids, and my sanity before the storm could grow stronger. As I bolted outside, the cold air hit me like a wake-up slap, and for the first time in ages, I could finally breathe. The drive to my parents' house in Asheville felt like a blur, my mind racing with the events that had just unfolded. I didn't bother with the usual niceties of a road trip, just gripped the wheel tighter than ever, knuckles white, replaying the wreckage of my afternoon. I pulled into the familiar driveway, and everything appeared unchanged, but I felt like a ghost drifting through. My mom opened the door before I even knocked, a warm welcome amidst the cold chaos I'd escaped. In the morning, the scent of blueberry pancakes wafted through the kitchen, a comforting aroma that usually shouted normal weekend. But it was disrupted when my mom casually mentioned, "I invited Ethan." My fork clattered to the table, my stomach dropped. "You what?" I gasped. She seemed unfazed, suggesting that we needed to talk through this mess. Her placid deterrence only fanned the flames of my anger. "You think this is just one mistake?" I hissed, spelled out disbelief dancing in the air as her face remained devoid of reaction. I pushed my chair back with the kind of force reserved for actors in dramatic reveals. 20 years of holding our household together felt like a tightrope act, and I was tired of patching cracks in a crumbling wall. That afternoon, while Maya was outside channeling her creativity into tulip sketches, I dove into an old box filled with the ghosts of bills, receipts, and birthday cards. It was a knack for the nostalgic, or perhaps just boredom that drove me. However, at the very bottom, nestled between the clutter, I found a faded ribbon binding a collection of letters. My heart raced as I recognized the fluid script. It was Jillian's handwriting. Each letter, addressed to Ethan, was dated from 2 decades ago, just a whisper before our paths crossed. I peeled open the first envelope, and my heart sank. These weren't just friendly notes, they were love letters dripping with longing, alive with youthful ache. I opened another, and another, feeling a twist of confusion and betrayal with every line. "You said you'd wait for me. What changed?" The final envelope revealed a photo of young love, Jillian and Ethan wrapped in each other's arms, blissfully unaware of a world that would later complicate their story. I felt dizzy, swept up in the emotional storm. Why hadn't Ethan told me this? Why hadn't Jillian? I had to know more, fueling the fiery need to get answers. My car honked into the driveway of Ethan's mother, a woman who always wore a mask of polite distance around me. I skipped the small talk and plunged right in, asking about the romance from their youth. Her expression morphed, lips tightening as she acknowledged their past. Her slow nod confirmed what I dreaded. It wasn't a mere phase but a reckoning of 2 young hearts. I could feel the weight of secrets pressing in on us. Armed with a letter I had found, I laid it on the dining table, its contents revealing how love was snatched away. It was a message from Jillian's grandmother, cautioning against the pain Ethan's letters might inflict on her granddaughter. As her mother read it, trembling, the enormity of the situation came crashing down. They never knew the truth. It wasn't malicious, it was tragic that such a beautiful connection evaporated before it could flourish. Once home, I sat on my porch for what felt like an eternity, clutching the letters like a lifeline. Everything outside was serene, but inside, I was a tempest, battling the urge to call Ethan. The tension hummed in the air like electricity. Finally, I dialed. "Mia, I found the letters," I announced, and without missing a beat, he simply breathed out, confirming the reality we were both now tangled in. There was no anger, no explanations, just an uncomfortable acceptance hanging in the air. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor, Jillian, stripped of all pretenses, no makeup or adornments, just vulnerability standing on my porch. She didn't have to say anything. I knew it was time to address this tangled web. Sitting across from her in my kitchen, the air vibrated with unspoken words. She confessed her love for Ethan, claiming it was genuine, but I felt time suspended between betrayal and understanding. With a soft voice, she recounted a drunken mistake, a fleeting slip at a holiday party. Each word wrenched at my heart. She insisted it wasn't some long, secret affair. Yet the aftermath still lingered like a heavy fog. "You think that makes it better?" I pressed, anger simmering underneath her explanations. "No," she admitted, but the weight of lost love hung between us, both of us navigating the wreckage of what could have been, unsure of where to go next. "Isn't it the worst when you know better but still do the thing anyway?" I sighed, finally letting my curiosity out. "Did he tell you he'd leave me?" She hesitated, and I could feel that gut punch of truth forming. "Did he say he loved you?" A slow nod confirmed my worst fears. "And you thought that was love?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. She was silent, as if carefully weighing my words. It's funny how love sometimes seems so clear but can turn murky in an instant. I always imagined that if my relationship with Ethan crumbled, it would be due to a giant, hurricane-sized issue. But here I was, left to realize it unraveled because he chose simple over right. I glanced at her hands, adorned with rings that once sparkled with possibility. "I'm moving to Seattle," she said, something heavy in her tone. "I got a new job. I need to go where echoes of destruction aren't following me around." I didn't muster up a goodbye, nor did I ask her to stay in touch. Instead, I felt like a door closed cleanly, not out of resentment but with a refreshing sense of clarity. Spring tiptoed in that year, no loud trumpets or colorful bursts, just soft, lingering light and gentle breezes transforming my surroundings. 6 months in my cozy little Greenville townhouse, I found peace amidst creaking floors and a quirky water heater that nearly had its own fan club. It was hilariously imperfect, but those 4 walls felt like a hug I desperately needed. Mornings would rise when I would suddenly forget the chaos of my past. Just that brief instant of stillness reminded me how precious this new beginning was. Avery returned home, bringing with him a lovely companion named Kat. With her easy grace and discerning eyes, she made everyone feel gentle yet strong. I took an instant liking to how she engaged with my son, treating him with care rather than putting him on a pedestal. Meanwhile, Maya discovered her artistic flair. One summer afternoon, she eagerly asked to paint a mural in her room. "Something messy but happy," she said, dubbing it Mom's fresh start. Blues, golds, whites, and an uplifting splash of jagged red told the story of hope. My mother began transforming as well, ever so slowly. She joined a local volunteer group, a move that shocked her younger self. Dad, in turn, enthusiastically tagged along, even taking up poetry. Sure, his verse wasn't going to win any awards, but it was his passion, and I had to admire the effort. Life was steadily moving forward, and I was beginning to feel a sense of renewal within the family. Then my phone rang one evening, and to my utter surprise, it was Ethan. "Hey, not looking to fix anything," he quickly said. "I just wanted to apologize for all of it. For letting you feel utterly alone in that marriage." His words hung in the air, and I didn't argue or push, it was just a moment of understanding. This wasn't about reconciliation. It felt like a release, a letting go. And when the call ended, I surprisingly didn't shed a tear. Later that week, fate coaxed me back to the gas station where everything had changed. It looked a bit fresher now, hints of greenery outside, new shelves lined with travel mugs. When I strolled in, Grant looked up with a warm smile. "It's you again." You never got the rest of my story. We settled into our familiar corner table, no lingering spirits but instead 2 people who had weathered storms and come through alive. As he asked what I'd tell my past self, I realized I'd comfort her by saying that you can have an emptier house yet a fuller heart. Grief was just an unexpected turn, not an end. That night, we didn't rush into anything, not even a kiss. There was something beautifully sacred about the quiet. It turned out that love doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes, it whispers softly, guiding you toward a new life waiting to be embraced. Reflecting on my past choices, I can confidently say I don't miss the life I thought I needed to defend. I mean, who knew? I wasn't really fighting for love, I was clinging desperately to the shadow of it. Spoiler alert, memories are terrible companions at night. They can't cuddle you when you're lonely, nor offer insight when you're facing the tough questions. I stayed too long, hoping someone would notice the emotional weights I was dragging around. Oh, Ethan and Gillian, bless their hearts. I really thought they would sense my struggle, realize how much I was carrying, and maybe even throw me a metaphorical life preserver. But alas, nothing. The betrayal came not with a grand smack but whispered in the quiet, a slow sinking realization that sometimes those closest to you can drift further away than you'd ever anticipate. It's wild how familiarity can mask itself with indifference over time, isn't it? Healing appears to be more of a subtle art than anything theatrical. Forget the dramatic climaxes we see in movies, healing is about mundane moments. That moment you wake up and feel a surprising lightness, freeing you from the nagging fear of the proverbial shoe dropping. It's recognizing that you're not just existing in a waiting room. You're genuinely living your life, like a plant finally soaking up the sun after an unyielding winter. Looking ahead, there's a colorful tapestry being woven around me. Avery is gearing up to hit the books again, brimming with enthusiasm for what's next. Meanwhile, Maya has her paints and brushes swirling, turning old walls into stunning art pieces that echo friendship and vibrancy. And Grant? Well, he's still pouring strong coffee and offering late-night company to weary souls like mine. These moments are threads in my new life, threads that don't weigh me down but rather uplift me. Then there's me, the storyteller in this unfolding narrative. Every day feels like a fresh page, and with every choice, I'm penning my journey anew. Isn't that empowering? If you're reading this and have ever felt bottled up in the name of keeping peace, let it be known, you have every right to make a grand exit. You're worthy of breathing freely and beginning again. And hey, if this little adventure of mine resonates with you, don't bottle it all up. Share your own stories, triumphs, struggles, and everything in between. Your experiences might just ignite a light of courage in someone else who's still scared to make that leap. Because somewhere out there, another soul yearns to escape a rut, and your story could be their beacon of hope.